Hello everyone, another video so soon. A genuine shock to the system, I'm sure. But I figured I'd make this video while at least I had the idea in my head. The 2023 roadmap came out recently for Watt, and they were covering a lot of things that they wanted to do this year, particularly vehicle rebalances, map rebalances, all that kind of stuff. New vehicles, so on and so forth. But the thing I wanted to focus on today was a vehicle rebalance, and this video is just going to cover some tanks that I think could use a bit of love just to make them a bit more relevant in the current state of the game. And despite what you're about to see me do to this AMX, we'll start with the Batshot. I think one of the classic tanks in Watt. When I think of like old school tanks, I think of an IS-7, I think of a Batshot, I think of, I guess, kind of an E5. Just, it reminds me of like ye olden days, and the Bat would be a really easy fix in my opinion, just to make it a bit more interesting. One thing that I think is a given would be give it another magazine or two of ammo. I find that balancing vehicles by ammo count is silly. It just makes it more frustrating and doesn't really provide any benefit. If you want to play devil's advocate, you could say, oh, well, what if it's like a really exciting game? It's a Call of Bound-Ups. He's down to his last enemy. He's got to pen his last two shots. If he doesn't, it's over and he loses. Sure, whatever, fine. But I don't think one or two magazines of ammo would really change that for the Bat. I just think it'd be a general positive. Another thing would be, if you're going to do that, or even if you're not going to do that, I think you really can't negotiate on giving it a little bit better gun handling. If you want to do that through a little bit of a buff through dispersion, whether that be the overall aiming circle size, or if you want to go further and do the aim time as well, you could decrease a pretty healthy chunk to make it just a bit more comfortable to play, along with on the move dispersion, turret traverse, hull traverse, all that, just to make it a bit more smooth, I think is the word I'm going for. Would be really nice. Excuse me. Without really changing too much. Now, the thing with the Bat is you do have to be a little bit careful about messing with something more serious, being like aim time, or not aim time, sorry, the overall reload time, I apologize. Because autoloaders are definitely role players in the realm of what makes Watt games so fast. I don't want to get into this too much because it's definitely another video's place, but like 15.5s are not particularly fun, and if you make autoloaders a bit too common or a bit too powerful, then that'll only kind of exacerbate that issue and make it even more problematic. So overall for the Bat, I think it'd be really easy. Just give it a bit more ammo, a bit better gun handling, and if you want to drop the reload by like 3 to 5 seconds, maybe even a little bit more, that's fine. I wouldn't really go over 5, but regardless, Bat, a pretty easy fix without getting too complicated. Well, on to another tank that would be not even remotely complicated, would be the Kennedy 1. This is a tank that I forgot how much I hated. I have not played this in a very long time, and it seems like, at least based on this game I played yesterday, that was for very good reason. It is so immensely clunky. One of the easiest fixes you could do would be, so I'll take it back a second. If you've played the Kennedy 1 before, or if you haven't, you'll notice in this video, I do not have the ability to fully traverse my turret. And the reason that's important is because the gun handling, the gun depression, I apologize, on the Kennedy 1 is actually not bad by Russian standards. I think it's 7 degrees or 8 degrees, probably 7, but the main thing with it is you only get that over the sides. And with the rework, you'd get it over the rear too. The problem is that in order to get this gun depression, you have to play in such an awkward manner. I'm ready to shove this Lion player out because I just need to be able to turn my tank a little bit more, to try and manipulate the terrain a little bit, and it's just so frustrating. It provides no benefit, it's so annoying, and it would just be such an easy fix to make a tank just a little bit more relevant. Not everything needs to turn into an AMX M4, where it's unbelievably strong and it dominates the matchmaker, but, just a little bit more variety in terms of what's fun would go a really long way. Another thing that would be nice, just don't even need this, but if you wanted to do it, you could buff the heat velocity. This thing is extremely jarring to switch between ammo. The APCR, I think, is the fastest in the game at like 1750 or 1800. It's really fast. And the heat is about half that at 950. It is so frustrating for reasons you're seeing now, that shot in the Panzer. The velocity is so low that the shell ends up arcing a little bit, and that kind of screws you over at these really close ranges. I am having a flashback to my frustration yesterday at how miserable it was to play this. So, just to reiterate, overall, K91, super easy fix to just make it a little bit more fun to play. Buff the heat velocity, doesn't have to be that much, you get buffed to like 1100 and it'll be fine, and give it a full turret so you could actually utilize the gun depression in a non-frustrating way. Very simple fix. I want to like this tank, I really genuinely do, but man, I got such a bad vibe from it yesterday when I played this. However, sticking to the topic of, frankly, very simple fixes would be the Panzer 7. This is a pretty forgettable German super heavy, at least when you think super heavy, you know, your average player is going to go towards Mouse, E100, or maybe even a VKK, because it's just this, but better. But I actually find this would be a super straightforward fix that would make it just a bit more relevant, kind of akin to the AMX M4 we had. You share similar alpha, you share similar armor layouts where the lower plate is a bit, you know, frustrating, I guess, but there are plenty of frontal weak points. The gun mantlet, left and right of the gun mantlet, the roof, the sides, like the cheeks below the turret, are also pretty heavy for ammo racks, but overall, if you just wanted to make this thing a bit more relevant, I would say just make the gun handling a bit better. You could buff the aim time and dispersion if you want, just so you're hitting your shots and keeping that trade potential, I guess, effective. It keeps the vehicle not being way too overpowered due to not having super insane armor. I definitely wouldn't recommend buffing the DPM at all. If you decide to, then maybe a bit would be fine, but you have to be a little careful about going too far, otherwise you've basically created just another AMX. However, admittedly, this is not as fast and just generally not as good a platform as the AMX is, at least in its current state. But the Panzer 7 is a tank that overall is pretty forgettable, like I was saying before. It doesn't really bring anything particularly unique to the table. You'll see here that I do bait a bit of a shot here by angling my lower plate, and the S-Conk can't pen me, even with APCR, but I definitely would say that's not standard. We do get a little nice hatch shot on the Chief. I could have shot him in the side just for ease of access, but it's always nice getting to pen the hatch just for, you know, just for fun. But overall, between this and the K91 are just two really easy changes, and I guess it's kind of what I want to highlight. A lot of people tend to look at balance changes as being this big, complicated, kind of like permanent thing, where really it's not. And that's the only thing I can kind of find solace in terms of Wargaming nerfing the AMX, as at least they're doing it relatively quick. In the grand scheme, it's been, what, like 8 months or something? I can't believe this, that sounds quick, but in the realm of where we've been having the Chieftain as meta for Clan Wars, for example, for the last 4 years, basically anything less than a lifetime with Wargaming speed feels quick. But again, the point I want to illustrate is not everything needs to be big, sweeping, like massive changes. There's a lot of really easy, simple things you can do. Alright, up next is a pretty simple change that I'd imagine Wargaming would be very thrilled with in terms of consistency. If you look at, let's say, the new AMX line nerfs, arguably some of them should be buffs, but they're very much not. The general trend Wargaming likes to do is keep things quote-unquote consistent, at least whatever to them consistency is. You could see this particularly with the removal of the FV215B to be replaced with the Super Conqueror, the 183 to be removed for the Badger, and all that stuff, right? They want the line to generally lead up to kind of sticking true to one theme. And they even do this like nationally between the Germans, Russians, Americans, whatever, right? The French are typically very heavy with autoloaders and all that stuff. But the main thing you could see with the T-57, at least to me, is the gun handling doesn't particularly fit the typical American theme. If you look at the M60 or the M48 or the E5, even the E3 and the Sheridan with a 105, the general trend is the gun handling is always pretty good. And if you look here at the amount of time it takes me to aim on this 268 V4, it is atrocious. Admittedly, it's not as bad as like a KV2 or something like that, but it would definitely be a welcome change just to make it a little more relevant and consistent with the rest of the nation. You have to be careful with the T-57 though, because it would be exceptionally easy to make this way too good. You know, obviously it's not going to be the same level as the Chief, but it would definitely be a bit of a menace. And again, I mentioned this with the Batshot. You've always got to be a little cautious when you buff autoloaders, because it runs the risk of speeding up the game to a really just not fun level for anyone. I guess outside of the people playing the autoloaders. And now the last and arguably least enjoyable tank for me at tier 10 nowadays, the Grill 15. This is a vehicle that harkens back to the Kennedy 1 and Panzer 7, where the fix would be, at least to me, exceedingly simple. I'd love to see a Grill 15 just get a full turret, akin to the tier 9 before it, and the tier 8 before it. It would just be overall quality of life without having to do anything massive. Now, I'm sure there's some argument for, well, realistically, you can't have the Grill turn its turret around and shoot because it would break the suspension or some shit. I don't care. It's a video game. Tanks have hit points, for Christ's sake. Like, it just doesn't matter. The whole game should be balanced around what's fun, what's enjoyable, so on and so forth, right? And the Grill would definitely be a lot more enjoyable and flexible on a lot of maps. If there's one problem that I think almost everyone can agree on, is that the maps generally are really not great. And having that lack of a turret does not go a long way, especially when the tier 8 and 9 before it have one. It wouldn't make the tank particularly broken, since it still has that troll gun handling, despite that insane shot I just hit on the 260. And the, you know, armor's not there, whatever, right? The gun handling's still relatively bad, bloom-wise and all that. Just give it a full turret, and it would be pretty nice. But overall, there's not too much else I could say about the Grill, because the change, again, I'm advocating for is very simple. If you guys have any suggestions or maybe some tanks that you'd like to see buffed this year, maybe get a little love, maybe something lower than tier 10, since that's generally what I play, please feel free to let me know in the comments below or on my stream. But regardless, that'll be today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will catch you all next time.